It's 2:47 a.m. You're staring at the ceiling fan, and for the third night in a row, you're doing mental math that doesn't add up. On one hand, you have this debt, a mortgage, a student loan. It's this massive, heavy anchor dragging behind you. Every month, you write a check for thousands of dollars, and you watch a depressing amount of it vanish into something called interest. You hate it. You just want it gone. But then, you open Instagram, and there's your friend from college posting about their portfolio. There's some 22-year-old on TikTok claiming they retired last Tuesday because they bought an index fund. You look at the stock market, up 10%, 15%, 20%, and you feel like an idiot. You think, am I losing money by paying off my debt? Am I actually setting myself back by trying to be responsible? You're stuck in the middle of the two loudest arguments in personal finance, the debt is evil crowd versus the leverage is magic crowd. Here's the thing, both of those crowds are wrong. My name is Bear, and I spend way too much time thinking about the mathematical and psychological warfare of the question, invest or pay off your loan. Most financial gurus will give you a generic rule of thumb. They'll say, if the rate is low, invest. If the rate is high, pay it off. And sure, that fits on a bumper sticker, but it doesn't account for how human beings actually function. Today, I'm not just going to show you the math, though we are going to do some serious math. I'm going to introduce you to a framework I call the FEM² rule. It's the only approach that respects both your spreadsheet and your sleep schedule. By the end of this video, you won't just have an answer, you'll have a strategy. Let's start with what I call the spreadsheet trap. If you ask a purely logical robot what to do with an extra $1,000 a month, the robot will insult your intelligence. Here is the common logic. Let's say you have a $400,000 mortgage at 6.5% interest, and let's assume the S&P 500 returns its historical average of roughly 10% per year. The robot says, Bear, this is simple subtraction. 10% minus 6.5% equals 3.5%. You are making a 3.5% profit spread by investing. Why would you ever pay off cheap debt? And on paper, the robot is right. Let's look at the numbers over 20 years. If you take that extra $1,000 a month and invest it at 10% for 20 years, you end up with roughly $759,000. If you take that same $1,000 and use it to pay down your 6.5% mortgage, you save roughly $460,000 in interest. The difference is nearly $300,000. That is a Ferrari. That is a college education. That is a very nice retirement cabin. So, case closed, right? Anyone who pays off their mortgage early is mathematically illiterate. Except you don't live in a spreadsheet. You live in a chaotic, unpredictable world where things break. Here's what most people don't realize about that 10% average return. Averages lie. If you stick your head in the oven and your feet in the freezer, on average, you're a comfortable temperature, but you're also dead. The stock market works the same way. Yes, the average might be 10%, but the stock market doesn't give you 10% every year like a salary. It gives you plus 30%, then minus 20%, then plus 5%, then minus 15%. This is called sequence of returns risk. Let's say you decide to invest that money instead of paying off your debt, and let's say the next decade looks like the year 2000 to 2010. Do you know what the S&P 500 returned total between 2000 and 2010? Negative 9%. Not per year, total for a decade. If that happens to you and you're holding a 6.5% mortgage, you aren't arbitraging the spread, you are bleeding out. You are paying 6.5% guaranteed interest to the bank while your investments are shrinking. You are leveraging yourself into poverty. This is where it gets really interesting. When you pay off debt, you are getting a risk-free return. Paying off a 6.5% loan is mathematically identical to finding a savings account that pays 6.5% guaranteed tax-free forever. Does that investment exist anywhere else? High-yield savings? Maybe 4%, taxable. Bonds? Maybe 5%, taxable. Real estate? Maybe 8 to 10%, lots of work, taxable. A guaranteed tax-free 6.5% is a unicorn. It is the best risk-adjusted return available to a regular person today. Now, you might be thinking, okay, Bear, I get the risk, but I'm young. I can ride out the volatility. I still want to maximize my wealth. And I respect that. But we need to talk about the sleep factor. Morgan Housel, one of the best financial writers of our time, tells a story about why he paid off his mortgage. On paper, it was the wrong financial decision. His mortgage rate was practically zero. He could have made millions more by investing that cash. But he paid it off. Why? Because independence is an asset that doesn't show up on a balance sheet. Let me give you a scenario. It's 2008 or 2020 or whatever the next crisis is. You just lost your job. The stock market has crashed 40%. Your portfolio has been cut in half. If you were the person who optimized and invested everything, you are now in a position where you have a massive mortgage payment due, no income, and your only source of cash is selling your stocks at a 40% loss. That is a financial death spiral. Now imagine the other guy, the guy who ignored the math and paid off his house. He loses his job, the market crashes. He wakes up, makes coffee, and thinks, well, this sucks, but at least I don't have a mortgage payment. His burn rate, the amount of money he needs to survive, is tiny. He has time. He has options. He has freedom. You cannot calculate the ROI of not panic selling your future because you were forced to liquidate assets at the bottom. So, we have a problem. The math says invest. The psychology says pay debt. If you pick one, you risk being poor if the market crashes, or you risk being regretful if the market booms and you miss out on compounding. This brings us to the FEM squared rule. F squared stands for freedom times flexibility.
Most people view this as a binary choice. Either I pay the loan or I invest. The F squared rule says you must do both, but the ratio changes based on your F squared zone. Here is the actionable formula. I want you to look at your loan interest rate. The green zone, rates 0% to 4%. If your debt is under 4%, maybe you locked in a mortgage back in 2021, the F squared rule says 90% invest, 10% pay debt. Why? This money is virtually free. Inflation is likely eating away at the value of the debt for you. Don't rush to pay this off. The math is too strong here. The red zone, rates 8% plus. If your debt is over 8%, credit cards, personal loans, bad car loans, the F squared rule says 0% invest, 100% pay debt. Why? You will not consistently beat an 8 to 10% guaranteed return in the market after taxes. This is a hair-on-fire emergency. Stop investing, except for your employer match, and kill this debt. The friction zone, rates 5% to 7%. This is where most of you are. This is where the F squared rule actually happens. If your rate is in this middle ground, you split your surplus cash 50-50. Here is how this looks in real life. You have that extra $1,000 a month. $500 goes to VTI, or your index fund of choice. $500 goes to principal-only payments. But Bear, you ask, why split it? Isn't that just being mediocre at both? No. This is what we call regret minimization. If the market rips up 20%, great, you participated. You made money. You don't feel like you missed out. If the market crashes 20%, great, you didn't lose everything. You locked in a guaranteed 6 to 7% return on half your money. The F squared rule essentially hedges your life against both outcomes. It keeps you in the game. It stops you from rage quitting your strategy because you went all in on the wrong horse. There is one massive catch to paying off your loan that nobody talks about. I call it the you can't eat your drywall problem. When you invest $50,000 into the stock market, that money is liquid. If you have an emergency, medical bill, roof leaks, job loss, you can click sell and have cash in 2 days. When you send $50,000 extra to your mortgage lender, that money is gone. It is trapped inside the walls of your house. Your net worth went up, yes, but you cannot go to the grocery store and pay for eggs with home equity. If you lose your job, the bank will not say, "Oh, you paid extra for 5 years? Cool, you can skip a few months." No, they will foreclose on you just as fast as the guy who never paid a dime extra. This is why the F squared rule is superior to just paying off the debt. By investing 50% of your surplus, you are building a freedom fund, liquid cash. By paying 50% to debt, you are building flexibility, lowering your effective duration of debt. You need both. You need the liquidity to survive the short term and the debt payoff to secure the long term. Let me show you the magic of the 50-50 F-squared split with real numbers. Back to our $400K mortgage at 6.5%. Payment is roughly $2,500 a month. You have $1,000 extra. If you do the F-squared split, $500 invest, $500 pay down. 1. The debt, you shave 8 years off your mortgage. Instead of 30 years, you're free in 22. 2. The cash, in those same 22 years, that $500 per month invested at roughly 8% grows to $300,000 plus. Look at the position you are in 22 years from now. You have a paid-off house worth probably $600,000 to $800,000 by then. You have $300,000 in liquid cash, and, this is the best part, you never lost sleep wondering if you were making a mistake. Compare that to the pay-off-only guy. He has a paid-off house in 14 years, but zero liquid cash investments from that extra money. He's house-rich, cash-poor. Compare that to the invest-only guy. He has $700,000 in stocks, but he still owes the bank money for another 8 years. If the market crashes in year 21, he's sweating. The F-squared rule puts you in the strongest position of options for the longest period of time. There is the truth about money that the calculators can't tell you. The goal of financial freedom isn't to have the highest number on a screen when you die. The goal is to maximize the amount of time you spend not worrying about money. If paying off your debt makes you feel lighter, do it. I don't care if the math says you lost 2%. The price of peace is worth 2%. If seeing your investment balance grow gives you a rush and makes you feel secure, do that. But for most of us, me included, we want both. We want the upside of the market and the security of no debt. So stop torturing yourself at 3 a.m. Use the F-squared rule. Split the difference. Win both games. If you found this helpful, do me a favor. Hit the like button. It helps the algorithm find other insomniacs who are stressing about their mortgages. And let me know in the comments, are you Team Invest, Team Payoff, or are you joining me in the F-squared club? I'll see you in the next one.